Hello everyone, Michael here for my first ever actual YouTube video. This is crazy. This is wild. This is so weird, doing an actual webcam with a mic and everything, because when I was younger, who thought I could be big on YouTube, didn't have any of this. So this is a pleasant refresher. For my first video, I wanted to talk to you guys about a little old game called Rage. Wrong game. I meant to say Dead by Daylight. So for the average viewer of this video who has no idea what Dead by Daylight is, let me give you a pleasant rundown of what the game is. Dead by Daylight is a multiplayer survival horror game where one player takes the role of killer and 4 players take the role of survivors. Survivors must complete 5 generators and escape before the killer sacrifices them to the entity by putting them on meat hooks 3 times. A 4v1 survival horror game. Sounds fun, right? But that's only the simplified explanation. There is so much more to this game, and one of those things is perks, and the perk system that they push. And that's what I want to talk about today. Let me start by saying this. Every survivor and killer come with 3 perks total. Every chapter. They are advantages to bring into the game with you to make the game easier or harder depending on who you're going up against. Today I want to talk about the strong ones, the ones that everybody uses and uses for their personal gain. First I want to talk about survivor perks, because they are the majority of this video. Now listen, I'm a survivor main, meaning I play survivor more than killer, but that doesn't mean that I don't see their flaws. Most survivors nowadays, and I mean most, abuse these perks to make it unfun for the killer. Let's start with one of the most infamous perks in Dead by Daylight, and that is Decisive Strike. Now, if you play DBD, you know exactly what I'm talking about, but if you don't, here is a rundown of what the perk does. I'm going to read the exact description they have on the website. After being unhooked or unhooking yourself, Decisive Strike activates for the next 60 seconds. When grabbed or picked up by the killer, succeed a difficult skill check to stab the killer for 4 seconds and escape their grasp. Okay, so you see that time limit? That's what gets abused. The survivor only has 60 seconds to activate this perk, and if they don't, it goes on cooldown until you get hooked again. And what survivors do is that they run in the killer's face with this 60 seconds and be toxic, when they don't even have to use it at all. The main focus of this perk is that it is an anti-tunnel perk. This is the Decisive Strike today, but oh my does it have a complicated history. The first iteration of Decisive Stun was 5 seconds, then it was 4, then it was 3, back to 5, and now it's back to 4, because survivors whined and cried because the time was too short. Here's another wonderful perk that came out of nowhere in 2022 with the absolute biggest meta shakeup this game has ever had. And that perk is Off the Record. After being unhooked or unhooking yourself, Off the Record activates for the next 80 seconds. It suppresses grunts of pain when injured and grants the endurance status effect. Basically, the endurance status effect is you can just take a free hit. You'll have it for 80 seconds, and if you are going to get downed, you take a hit instead. So I'm sure you can see where I'm going with this. Survivors run into the killer's faces with this 80 seconds of basically being invincible, just to annoy the killer. You have 80 seconds to take a completely free hit of damage.
Wow!
I'm going to say that again. A completely free hit of damage. How can survivors not love this? This perk used to be literally so bad that nobody used it. Until August of 2022. DBD had the biggest change it's ever had. It changed up over 100 perks, and this being one of them. It turned it into dumpster fire, into what survivors like to call God. It made Off the Record one of the most used perks in DBD history because of this change. So with these 2 perks that I just mentioned, survivors can just run in front of the killer after being unhooked and just be invincible, just to abuse the perks they don't even have to use when they can be off doing a generator, healing a teammate, or anything else. But no, they'd rather bully the killer instead. This swiftly moves on to our next topic, and what that is that These are perks that got changed because they got so abused that they had to get changed. The 3 perks I want to talk about are Adrenaline, Background Player, and Made for This. These perks are some of the most picked in DBD history, but since they're not strong anymore, no one uses them. Adrenaline basically gave you a speed boost after all of the generators were completed, and a free health state. So if you were downed on the ground, you would go back to injured, and if you were injured, you would go back to being healthy. But there's something about this perk that was always an exploit, and they never really changed until recently. And that was if you were on the hook when all the gens were powered, you instantly got a health state while on hook, and when you got unhooked, you were healed again. Which really didn't make any sense, and people used this perk mainly because of that. This eventually got changed, along with the speed boost down from 5 to 3 seconds. And just like that, Adrenaline vanished. Because, say it with me class, it's not strong anymore! Next is Background Player, which was really bad when it first came out. When it first came out, it was completely unusable, and it made tunneling for killers much more easier. Basically what it does now and after the first change, it basically gives you a massive speed boost. Crazy speed boost after the killer picks up a survivor. The speed boost was, for better or for worse, massive. You could run across the map in less than 5 seconds. It was crazy speed. So, Behavior took it upon themselves to lower the speed. Lo and behold, no one uses it anymore. Last but certainly not least is a completely controversial perk called Made for This. This perk is relatively simple. It's when you're injured by any means, you get a 3% movement speed bonus. Just like that. Just for free. You just got 3% movement speed more than you already have. This perk messed with the killer's core muscle memory so bad to the point where it was impossible to win games with this perk. If every survivor had this perk in a game, you wouldn't win. If you were playing killer, you would not win. It got changed very quickly within the first year of it being released, and what it does now is that it gives you 3% movement speed when being in deep wound, not when you're injured, which is super situational. It's only good against killers like the Legion or the Deathslinger. This section of the video is kind of like the betrayal trope / cliche. Like that time in Total Drama Island when Heather just didn't need to use Lindsay anymore for her personal gain, so she just threw her to the side like she was nothing and that she just didn't use her. That's kind of what this is like. Survivors use perks, and then when they're not strong anymore, they throw them to the curb. Now let's talk about the few killer perks that I want to bring up in this video. I'm going to split this up into 2 sections like I did for the survivor perks. The perks that get abused and the perks that get abused that they have to get changed. First, let's talk about the most infamous killer combo there is to date, and that is Scourge Hook, Pain Resonance, and Pop Goes the Weasel. This combo is all about generator regression, nothing else. It's used to pressure multiple generators at once, and it excels at it. Basically, Pain Resonance is a series of hooks on the map, 4 total, that when you hook a survivor on it, it regresses the most worked on generator 4 times. That's it. And Pop Goes the Weasel is after hooking a survivor, you have 45 seconds to kick a generator to remove most progress from that generator. These perks did get a series of changes over the years, but it's not series of changes that I should talk about because they're very minuscule, like percentages and whatnot. Every time I play, every time I log on to play Survivor, I come across maybe 80% of my games are Pain Res Pop users. It's like the killer's decisive strikes, just annoying and annoying to play against. Lastly, the 2 killer perks that got so abused that had to be changed were Eruption and Ultimate Weapon. These 2 perks have completely different functions. One is regression, and the other is information. Let's talk about Eruption first. This perk is kind of like Pop Goes the Weasel, but with a couple extra steps. When you kick a generator, that gen then explodes when you down a survivor, regressing some of the generator's progress. The kicker of this perk was, if you were working on the generator when it exploded, you got afflicted with the incapacitated status effect. It basically made you not be able to do anything progression-wise for 25 seconds. That means doing generators, unhooking, healing survivors, cleansing totems, opening chests, anything. You were basically not human for 25 seconds. This got changed after a while. It still does everything that it does nowadays, but it did get changed so the incapacitated status effect is no more. It is very rare to see an eruption in-game nowadays because it's basically a harder version of Pop, so no one uses it now that the incapacitated status effect is gone. Finally, time to bring up the last perk of this video, and that is Ultimate Weapon. This perk is probably the most recent perk and change perk in this video. This perk came out with the Alien chapter in August of 2023, so likely a lot of people were very excited to see what perks the Alien would have. Oh boy, were we wrong. This perk was and still is an information perk, but now and then were two separate ways of information. Before it got changed, all you had to do with Killer was open a locker and anyone within your terror radius screamed, revealing their location and interrupting their current action. This perk was highly successful on killers like Oni, who excels on knowing exactly where you are when he's in his power. When this perk was at its peak last summer, all you saw were Onis with Ultimate Weapon, and it got very boring very quickly. It got changed pretty quickly into its lifespan, only a couple months in. Now, its function is primarily the same, but instead of screaming, it shows the aura of survivors within your terror radius. Literally, I'm not making this up. Ever since it got changed, I haven't seen an Ultimate Weapon since last summer. So what's the moral of the story here? What's the point of this video? I made this video to show that the game, totally not perfect, has many flaws, and that being mainly the perks and the toxicity that comes with it. There are so many perks that I did not talk about in this video that also have complicated histories and got changed because survivors abused them. For example, Dead Hard. And oh boy,
do not get me started on Dead Hard.
Some people might say we need these perks and changes to keep the game alive, but that's not entirely true. Most of these perks, 80% of these perks, have gone untouched since DBD first came out in 2016. Almost 9 years of just not getting touched because they are not broken and they are not boring. They are right in the middle. They don't get overused or they don't get underused. They are right in the middle. I'm sure you could see that I have a love-hate relationship with this game. The hate being from this video's topic and the toxicity that comes with it. I wish survivors and killers didn't have to abuse these perks just to get an advantage. I remember when this game was genuinely scary back in 2018. And these perks were still these perks back then, most of them. But it wasn't as bad as it is today. This game is a mockery of what it once was. 4 little survivors should not be able to bully killers like Vecna, Dracula, and the Xenomorph. They would completely stomp on these survivors if they weren't in the entity's realm. Alright, that wraps it up for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching my first official YouTube video. If you want to see more of my content, I make little videos of clips from Dead by Daylight and other games. They are on my channel. All of my socials will be below. And I hope you enjoyed the background of this video. It's just a bunch of clips that I have from Dead by Daylight that needed to be used. So I hope you did enjoy that. If you want more videos like this, like explaining something about a game, I would be more than happy to do a video like this again. This was really fun to make. Alright everybody, see you later. This is Michael signing off.